Kevin Harvick may not be done racing in NASCAR after all. Legacy Motor Club makes a splashy crew chief signing, and is Daniel Suarez on the hot seat at Trackhouse? How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. Just checking in. Is everyone okay? Did everybody make it through the first Sunday without NASCAR cleanly? But as promised, this show does not stop even in the NASCAR offseason, and even when I'm not actually at home. Still plenty of videos to come recapping an exciting 2023 season, looking ahead towards 2024. Still a couple of high-profile Cup Series rides without drivers, and plenty of NASCAR content in between. Let's kick things off today with some news. Earlier this morning, Legacy Motor Club announced they've signed crew chief Ben Bayshore to team up with John Hunter Nemechek next season. Nemechek will have a familiar voice in his ear. Ben Bayshore worked with Nemechek in the Xfinity Series this season. They won 7 races together, made it all the way to the championship 4. And Ben Bayshore, like John Hunter Nemechek, has prior Cup Series experience. Before moving back to the Xfinity Series last year, Ben Bayshore was Kyle Busch's crew chief his final 2 years at Joe Gibbs Racing, won a total of 3 races across those 2 seasons. This is the second year in a row that Legacy Motor Club has put a new, young driver in the 42 car and has teamed them up with a crew chief they worked with in the Xfinity Series. Last year, of course, it was Noah Gragson in the 42, and he brought Luke Lambert with him. The two had won 8 Xfinity Series races together the year previously. So Legacy doing very much the same thing 2 years in a row. Hopefully this time around they find a little more success in the NASCAR Cup Series. That being said, this really feels more like a Toyota decision. We already know Toyota really likes John Hunter Nemechek, and Ben Bayshore has been in the Toyota system for years. I'm sure it was easy to convince Legacy Motor Club that Bayshore is the right guy for the job, given his success with John Hunter this year in Xfinity. But we saw towards the end of this year, Luke Lambert and that 42 car with Carson Hocevar behind the wheel most weeks, they found a little something. Not much, but something. Something that was not there the first half of the season. I don't know where this leaves Luke Lambert, a guy who, again, 2 years ago dominated the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Will he stay with Legacy Motor Club in a different role? Will he move over to JGR? Maybe he'll become an Xfinity Series crew chief at JGR? Don't know. Do not know what will become of Luke Lambert, but I hope he lands somewhere. This whole last season for Legacy Motor Club, there are some things we can legitimately take away from this season, but practically from the start, it was a lame duck year for Legacy Motor Club. Forget about all the changes in the offseason with Jimmy Johnson moving in last minute, not sure what Richard Petty's role was going to be, then Noah Gragson, a rookie driver, Luke Lambert coming with him. The moment Legacy Motor Club announced pretty early in the year that they would be leaving Chevrolet to join Toyota in 2024, any bit of information they were getting from Chevy went away. They were truly on their own and without as much sponsor support as they'd had previously. If you look at Eric Jones's car, vast majority of the races this year was Allegiant Airlines on the hood. Sunseeker Resorts on the 42 the vast majority of weeks. This team was out on an island by themselves most of last year. So sure, much of last season, quite honestly, was a wash. This was a rebuilding year. Like Jimmy Johnson said in this tweet a few days ago, we're excited to show you what we can do in 2024. Is Ben Bayshore the right guy? John Hunter Nemechek the right guy? Again, both have previous Cup Series experience, just not together. Hoping to see some improvement out of the 42 and the 43 cars next season. But moving on, I'm a few days late on this. I've been very busy with personal family commitments, but I at least wanted to address it because it is interesting, and I know it's going to make a lot of Kevin Harvick fans kind of excited. But I was listening to Dale Jr.'s podcast, the Dale Jr. Download, a few days ago. Kevin Harvick was the special guest. They touched on a wide variety of topics. I encourage you to go check out the full episode. But one thing that stood out to me, Kevin Harvick suggested he may still be interested in racing perhaps in the Xfinity Series in the near future. Harvick told Dale Jr., quote, "I think that's something I would have to lean on somebody like you, Dale Jr., to say, is that worth doing? I think the Xfinity stuff is something. I want to make sure that I do a really good job for Fox until I get done with that, and once I get done in June and say, maybe we can fit this in. This looks like a good weekend and we could do it." It sounds like Harvick is leaving the door open to a one-off NASCAR start here or there, but he did reiterate that he will not go back to the NASCAR Cup Series. Harvick said, quote, I'm not going to drive Cup ever again. I can't be competitive. I can't make myself go there and say, I'm looking for a top 30. That's what it would be. You'd be lucky to run 30th. Yeah, I don't think he's giving himself quite enough credit, but I get where he's coming from. He doesn't want to do, with all due respect, what Ryan Newman did this past season, where he just made a few one-off starts, but in less than stellar equipment. Newman himself, a year or two removed from Cup Series experience. Newman did fine. He certainly didn't embarrass himself this year. He was just limited due to the hand he was dealt. Little past his prime, maybe, limited practice, obviously limited resources and equipment. If Kevin Harvick was in a similar situation, I don't think he'd run much better than Ryan Newman did this season. So I actually applaud that awareness from Harvick. I think far too often we see stars, legends of the sport stick around maybe a touch longer than they should, and that's their right. We had this conversation about Jimmy Johnson earlier this year. It's their right to do what makes them happy. If they're competitors still, go out and compete. By all means. But as a fan, I think we'd prefer to see our heroes go out on top. Like, I legit teared up when Matt Kenseth won at Phoenix in his second to last race with Joe Gibbs Racing. Incredible, beautiful moment. Then he came back and raced with Roush and did okay. And then he came back and raced with Chip Ganassi. And in hindsight, I wish he'd never picked up the phone. So if Kevin Harvick wants to come back and race Xfinity or trucks or something like that, by all means, maybe he could teach those young drivers in those series a thing or two. But I honestly respect the awareness of Harvick, even though I think he's selling himself short. It's hard to come back and race Cup when you don't do it every single week and maybe you're a little past your prime. Like, give the current crop of drivers some respect. They are really good at what they do, and they are dialed in on a week-to-week basis. It's hard to compete against that. I don't care who you are. But some hope there for Kevin Harvick fans. He may not be completely done racing in NASCAR after all. Now, speaking of one driver who kind of blows up everything I just said, although I guess he's not past his prime by any means, I'm talking about Shane Van Gisbergen, who last season at Chicago rolled into the United States with zero NASCAR experience and won a Cup Series race. Got everyone talking, generated massive amounts of hype, and was able to parlay that into a development deal of sorts with one of NASCAR's top teams, Trackhouse. The plan next year for SVG is for him to make a variety of truck, Xfinity, and Cup Series starts all part-time, but it's clear Shane Van Gisbergen has bigger goals. Talking to Speed Cafe, SVG recently said, quote, "It sounds like I'm going to be doing a lot of races in 2024. When they said that it's going to be a part-time schedule, maybe 20 races, it's more than we do here in New Zealand full-time. I want to get as much experience as I can and hopefully be in the Cup Series in 25. Oh, and he did clarify later on that he means full-time in Cup by 2025. I know some of you fans may believe it's presumptuous to think you'd be Cup Series ready with less than a year of experience, but I disagree. It's bold, sure, but think about what SVG has done in just 2 Cup Series starts. He's finished first and he's finished 10th. Very strong results. Granted, both starts came at road courses, the style of racing he's far more familiar with. But guess what? Next year, there are 3 road courses in the regular season and 2 in the playoffs. And looking ahead to 2025, I don't see that number changing much. If anything, it may go up. They might add Montreal finally. As long as the format remains what it is, where 1 win in the regular season locks you into the 16-driver playoff, Shane Van Gisbergen's skill set is very appealing to really any Cup Series team. Look, if next year he struggles mightily on ovals, runs outside the top 25 or top 30, I'll eat my words. He's not ready. But assuming SVG starts to figure things out next year, is able to run top 20, maybe even top 15 in good equipment, yeah, I don't think it'd be crazy to suggest he go full-time in Cup in 2025. Again, considering the format. So where I shift my attention, though, is towards Trackhouse, because Trackhouse has 4 drivers under contract and only 2 Cup Series charters. I don't see an easy way for Trackhouse to acquire a 3rd or certainly not a 4th charter. Look, Justin Marks, they've been bold in the past. They bought out Chip Ganassi Racing to get the charters they have now. But unless a major sponsor or new investor joins the team, kind of like what's happening with Spire, I don't see Trackhouse having the cash to just go buy another charter. So they may need to make some difficult decisions in the near future. Ross Chastain is not going anywhere. He's won 2 races each of the past 2 years. He's made the playoffs both seasons. He's bringing in new fans. He's bringing in sponsors. They just got Busch Beer away from Stewart Haas. Ross Chastain is not going anywhere. Daniel Suarez, this is all speculation. I know he did sign an extension only about a year ago, but contracts can, evolve, perhaps? I believe Daniel Suarez is on the hot seat this year. I know, he's Trackhouse's guy. He was their first driver, their anchor. They built around him at first. But things changed quickly, and now Trackhouse is getting bigger. They're looking towards the future. They've already had that taste of success. They know it's possible. They are going to decide in 2024 whether or not Daniel Suarez is a valuable member of the team. Because the last 2 years, he has been second fiddle to Ross Chastain. He's won fewer races. This year, he missed the playoffs. And when you got Zane Smith, who's right now being leased out to Spire for a year, but I can't imagine that's a long-term solution. And now you've got SVG, who got everyone talking last summer. He's talking about going full-time Cup. You've got 3, I think, highly capable drivers vying for that one spot. Daniel Suarez needs to win next season, at least 1 race, and I think he needs to make the playoffs, or Trackhouse is going to look closely at his contract and we'll see what their options are. Now, I guess the other way Daniel Suarez survives this is if both SVG and Zane Smith fall flat on their face next season. If Zane in Trackhouse Spire equipment flops, runs 25th to 30th, makes a ton of mistakes, maybe that changes Trackhouse's plans. If SVG just cannot get a handle of the ovals whatsoever, again, maybe Daniel Suarez is safe for at least another year. But I truly believe Daniel Suarez's seat is heating up. He was their guy. He was their anchor. But now the SS Trackhouse is setting sail. They've got bigger goals, bigger dreams in sight. And Daniel Suarez has to prove to them that he is that guy. A lot of pressure, I believe, on the 99 team next season. But that's going to do it for this episode of Out of the Groove. Share your thoughts down in the comment section below. I know we covered a few very different topics. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We talk NASCAR all year long. The off season is not slowing us down. And a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. I'll catch y'all again later this week. Got lots of videos planned and coming your way. Thanks again for the support. I'll see you real soon.